Ready, Justin? Welcome back, everybody, from the closed session. The council entered into closed session, but took no reportable action at this time. Um, Moving on to
I
item.
have a comment.
Sure, I think so. Are they allowed to comment?
No.
No.
I don't know if this is a public comment thing.
Well, everything that's on the agenda listed in public session can be commented on by the public.
Right, but we did,
Brown Act, you wanna check it?
we did public comment on the closed session item
Yes,
before the
but-
closed session
yes,
item.
but this is coming out of closed session and it's agendized. That means the public can speak to it.
Can we err on the side of caution and just allow Mr. Rickard to
Sure,
speak?
yeah.
Can you please use the mic, or if you hand you a mic, if you can hear this mic?
Maybe? I had one, but
I'm just trying to follow.
you're welcome to, let's just share it.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Justin, my mic is blinking green. Did I do something? Oh, now it's solid. Never mind.
Yes, do you want me to start the 3-minute timer, Alex?
Uh, Let me start.
Sure.
What I'm giving you here are 3 pages from the state of California's Brown Act website. Okay? If you look on the first page, 71, you'll see that item, section 54956.9 is titled closed session pending litigation. Then you turn to page 73 and you see that this section 54956.9 runs another approximately a third of a page to the following section. Now look at your agenda. As closed session item, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. So we're in the right section here for that. Now look at the 2 subsections that are listed with the agenda item. 54956.9 parentheses lowercase d parentheses 2 and parentheses d lowercase d parentheses 3. Now let's scan down these 2.5, this page and a half. Okay, quickly. The first page, 71, you don't see any subsections at all. Come over here on page 72 and you see a list of them running down the page. And I'm not going to run through them, but you can all look at them and see it there too. You come over here on the last page, you have 1 subsection with parentheses C and then 2 without any designation. Now I want you all to try to show me where the agenda items on the agenda, the subsections, parentheses D, lowercase d, parentheses 2, and parentheses lowercase d, parentheses 3 are in this section that you have agendized. They're not there. They're not there, which means, folks, your agenda item in closed session was not agendized correctly. And that is a violation of the Brown Act. No matter if it's incidental or not, it is a violation of the Brown Act. Now, I have no idea who's responsible for it, nothing at all. But it's going to be included in my response to the city attorney's response to my cure and neglect letter. All right, because one of the consequences of a misagendized agenda item is that it becomes null and void. So just whatever occurred in that is endangered by this. I'm doing this in the spirit of transparency and because you guys really got to sharpen up your act. Okay, this is really careless. So thank you for the time and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Swatsky, go ahead. Just so you guys are aware, the timer is not going off, so I'll verbally let you know when it goes off.
Thank you. That's great. Just so you know, the agenda in the past has been used very loosely. I brought it forward to people. You have a pledge of allegiance, and are we entitled to make a comment every single time on that? I've seen no forum where that's allowed or normal. Nor have I ever seen any report out of closed session being open to public comment itself either in any of the forums. And I've attended 16 years of supervisors meetings. I'm not for sure. I've seen D3 all the time as far as different kinds of litigation. Possibly somebody can further educate Mr. Ricka regarding D3, but it's a real standard one and it's in there and I've looked it up myself before. In the prior thing regarding agendas, we had city council meetings before where the whole last 3 or 4 items that were agendized by the prior mayor were basically ignored, such as future agenda items and all these kind of things. We just kind of end the meeting, just marched right through with no public comment. So anyway, I trust you folks. I trust your attorney prepared that for you. And maybe I will take the time again to look up what small d, small 3 is, and then we can all be educated to which topics those are. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Great, thank you. Any
May I have
further?
the rest of my 3 minutes to respond?
You
used them.
used them. I'm sorry.
I used all my 3 minutes.
Yeah, you did. I'm
Okay.
I'm outside. The timer went off and I didn't say anything. I'll leave.
I'll just comment. Joe.
Sure, yes.
You can find it.
Can you
on
come up here,
codes.-
please,
I'm
to
sorry.
the microphone? Thank you.
You can find it on codes.finelaw.com, and there is a D 1, 2, 3, and 4 that you can read through and see exactly what's in those sections.
Where is it?
It's in California Code Government Section 54956.9, and if you scroll down, there's a section D 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all listed in there very clearly as subsections.
Yes,
Yep.
but they're not the same
Thank you.
subsections.
Uh,
This is
Alex,
lowercase
Alex,
d.
come on. You guys talk about it later.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your guys' patience. I think it was kind of rude of our original speaker to just jump in and not give you guys even time to call the meeting back to order and go in closed session. Maybe I missed that, but and Alex, do some due diligence. If you do go back onto our city website and review the commissions and city agendas that were posted obviously prior to this council, do me a favor, homie. Keep track of all the ones council never gave us. Those are the great ones. And you know what? We also didn't get videos to those either. Maybe ask your friend sitting next to you why we never got those, and if she feels that's a conflict of interest.
Great.
So
Ju-
we're
Julie, do you have
moving on. Thank you.
Julie?
Yep.
Thank you, Julie. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to. Is there any further public comment at this point? Great. Can we consider ad hoc committee item number 7? Consider ad hoc committee for city manager recruitment discussion action item.
I didn't do an agenda report because literally I'm just asking you guys to pick 2 of you to be on an ad hoc so that we don't have to call a closed session or a special meeting every time you want to talk about the recruitment.
Okay, let's see here.
How many ad hocs are we on? How many do you have?
Hold on, let me go back to the notes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ad hocs currently existing.
Great.
7?
Well,
Yes.
I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring. I was impressed with the work that Tri-Peppy Smith did with HCOG. I definitely have worked in recruitment before, and I have excellent availability to respond to Tri-Peppy Smith at any time that they need, so I'm not expected on travel, etc.
I'm interested in serving on that committee as well.
Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to have a balanced approach to this, and I'm not sure of my bandwidth for this one. But if I had to choose between the other one and this one, I would probably choose the city manager recruitment. But I'm up.
Choose
I'll be on
between-
another ad hoc. That's not a problem. Just put me where you want me.
Okay. I'm going to open this item up for public input. Does anyone wish to comment on the city manager recruitment ad hoc that we're forming? Seeing one, Julie, Christy, go ahead.
Yes. I definitely approve of it, and I appreciate you guys moving forward. Was there already a motion for who is going to be on the ad hoc?
There is not yet. We've had some people throw their hats in the ring.
Okay, sweet. I still approve it. Either or. You guys are all great to be on. Thank you.
Great. All right. Last call for public comment. Seeing none. I'm going to put. It's my job to select who goes on it. Just term. I'm going to put Elise and Kat on the city manager recruitment ad hoc. All right. Moving on to yes, go ahead.
Vaughn, is in order to also reflect the council members that aren't present, can we get them to submit some letter or questions or any other concerns before meeting with Tri-Peppy Smith? Or it sounds like Tri-Peppy Smith pretty much works with all of us together to
Well,
flesh out the recruitment process.
right. And I think that an initial meeting and a report back, but yeah, if John or Michelle had any particular concerns, you can think of any, you can maybe tell
I
us
think that
now or.
my only comment would have been to just not limit it to one avenue. That would have been my approach.
Not limit recruitment?
Yeah. So, but here we are.
Can we have a discussion around this? We really can't. We can
Probably
before the
not.
ad hoc, right?
Well, as it pertains to the formation of the
So, I
the
mean,
ad hoc
as
committee,
far
I
as
mean,
like,
what is the ad hoc committee going to do? Are we gonna, we're gonna work with Tri-Peppy Smith, or we're gonna work on the recruitment in other ways? I mean, I think
I think that this is to facilitate continued forward motion with Tri-Peppy Smith, and that there will be Tri-Peppy Smith will also work with all of the council members. I assume it would be in a council meeting, and I don't know if it'd be closed session because potentially it has to do with personnel or not. That would be up for the attorney to determine. So there will this ad hoc should not preclude the involvement of other council members. So, and I think
Right.
that's the very point of working with Tri-Peppy Smith, that it brings everybody into the conversation. It gets everybody in and kind of helps a council to come to a group decision on what they're looking for.
but the recruitment is limited to a narrow scope of just Tri-Peppy Smith. And is that my understanding of what the purpose of this ad hoc is going to do? Is just work?
Oh, I see. Yeah, because it doesn't have that.
It's just recruitment, and so I was thinking broader than that.
I mean, ostensibly, should a Tri-Peppy Smith thing not work out or not go forward for whatever reason you decide, because it's not like you guys have inked a contract yet, then this would be the ad hoc that helps steer that process moving forward.
Any further questions? And just to confirm, are we having sit-down meeting with them before we?
That is the goal.
Okay, thank you.
That is
And
the
that
goal.
and they will be doing that, or all of us will be doing that.
I haven't heard back from Ryan yet.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to the next item if everyone's ready.
So I guess just going back to that,
Sure.
I would assume that because there was an action item to move forward with asking Tri-Peppy Smith to come, that process is already moving.
Mm-hmm.
And the recruitment piece would involve maybe a broader approach. So that was
I would
my
talk to Ryan
impression.
about that more.
Can
This was his recommendation that you form an ad hoc for this process.
Okay, and can
Okay.
you look in your notes and remind us, at our last meeting, our action was to move forward with Tri-Peppy Smith, was it not?
Mhm,
Yes.
it was voted on.
Thank you.
And to
So-
be clear, that was, I don't know if Danny also received that email, but in an email to me from Ryan, he had suggested an ad hoc so that rather than incurring more attorney's fees, and it also allows us to move that process forward quickly. So that's the genesis for that.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
We're ready to move on to 8.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to item number 8. Consider ad hoc committee for housing element rezoning process. What, Danny, is this exactly?
Yeah.
So this one is another recommendation from Ryan, I believe. And the goal for this is to help start setting the dates and scheduling for the things. And that way we can start moving forward on that.
Is this is for our housing element? Yes.
Yes, and
Okay.
making sure that if we need to respond to HCD, then we can go to the ad hoc and, avoid serial communications in between meetings
That'd be
about
good.
this topic.
Michelle, no interest with HCD.
Um,
Ideally, somebody who's going to be here on Monday, because that's when our next meeting with HCD is going to be
What time on Monday?
at 3:30. That was the soonest available appointment.
I'm not available.
no, I'm on a plane.
Kat, do you want to?
I can be available for that. Sure.
Or I guess we need to open up for public discussion. I'm just seeing. So you're not available. You're not available.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does the public wish to comment on this item? Yes, go ahead. Oh, Adeline, why don't you go first?
No, let me go first this time. No, I'll wait.
I guess neither of us have comment then.
Okay, Julie Christie, go ahead.
Thank you, guys.
To everybody in house, I really do appreciate Zoom. I wish you guys could see everything I do while you're in there, and I do appreciate it very much. For getting on to Monday, yeah, whoever has time, I understand a busy schedule and short notice. I do appreciate doing these incremental, bringing up of our housing element and coming into compliance. I would hopeful that during that meeting, maybe it could be disclosed to HCD the process that we really have had. Maybe our planner can actually show everything that commissions and council changed and edited because it's been minute, and our town halls and disclosures on that. I think we really need to up our game with everything, but until we get some comfort with the zoning and we get some comfort with what the state's actually mandating that we implement, I don't think anybody's installing this out. I think a lot of it has been the uncomfortableness with the process, the fact that it hasn't really been disclosed and edited out. Like speaking to the prior, I watched a lot of the other municipalities. You guys, I bring it up all the time during the meeting. Some of you know that because you've been around. And in comparison for our housing element update, we have been in huge neglect. I've been trying to use the examples HCD actually has on their website, the examples that they promoted that we use during our implementation time and drafting time, that I wish we would just use their examples. And that would clear up a ton. That would clear up a lot. Thank you.
Very much.
It's good.
Who would like to speak next? Does anybody want to comment?
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Somebody go.
Well,
What ends up happening is I make a statement and then the person that wants to go after me discredits my statement. Anyway, I just want to reiterate that there were a lot of people are now blaming the past council for not taking action. Those are the same people that would have complained had we taken some action. We tried to do our due diligence, and what happened was we passed it on to the new council, thinking that was something that they would like to take on as their first real action. Everyone knows how I feel about housing. I think it's very important. I think we need to move as soon as possible on getting housing in Blue Lake. It's a real need. There's so many people that need affordable housing in this town. They're just one rent away from being gone from Blue Lake, and that's a shame. I want to see a vibrant town. I want to see children in our school. I don't want to live in a retirement home. I want to see firemen and people working, fire workers that have a place to live, and staff people that can live here in town as well. So I hope we move quickly on this.
and it's not so much angst at the last minute.
Just to confirm, this is about the
Of course.
housing rezoning.
Of course it is.
Great.
And again, as the prior speaker said, it's not a major concern of last minute being transferred to you folks, but this has been delinquent for I don't know how long, since 2019. I mean, it was supposed to be done by 20, so that's a major concern. I did wish to speak to the fact that you're doing the rezoning, and I think in the zoning, it's really important, and I did not see this incorporated, but somehow to work to get the diversity, equity, and inclusion component into your zoning. And that's a basic thing. The zoning is what implements that. The criteria you have for your ozone or things, and the zoning of the lot should reflect that. And the biggest problem we have with diversity, equity, and inclusion is if you're going to have a by right project, then in the opinion of many people in the state, then you should have all levels of people living together, all different things. That's a basic concept within the state. And we don't seem to reflect that. So while you're zoning, possibly projects that are 10 or larger should have at least 10% of each different economic group of all four in there. So that's a suggestion. It's just as far as your zoning, you might have to tweak some zoning itself to accomplish the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, it's a term that prior staff hated, but creating a poverty pocket where you have all the people living there of very lower means is not really appropriate. So if they're going to have a by right, then I think that should be included in there. And there's a few other things that have to do with zoning also that maybe in the future we'll have during public comment to discuss a few other things that would be really good to incorporate within our community to basically have the overall governing policy of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's my concern. Just isn't reflected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last call for public comment before we, yes, go ahead.
So Terry Bayless, the concern for, this being passed on so long, but even looking at some of the things that come from the state and then looking at our housing element, I would, just encourage the council to maybe think about an ad hoc committee. Might be two of you, but it doesn't seem like the community was involved very much in the process before. And I feel like if it's just an ad hoc committee for two council members, that throws it all back on your shoulders again. And I think that's concerning. So can it be an ad hoc committee that would include community members so they could take some of that burden off of you and maybe come up with ideas and research and looking at it, so that two people don't just have to do that. So that's my thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good one.
Is that an option, Danny, to include community members in a ad hoc? I know that. What was that, sorry?
Can I still make a comment?
Yes.
I just was gonna say, I worked for 16 years for the Garfield Sanitary District, and we went through a similar process when we were trying to decide where our sphere of influence should be and what properties should and shouldn't be added to them and where we wanted to do our annexations and expand our jurisdictional boundary. And our ad hoc committee did include 2 members of our board of directors, and then we had 4 members of the community that were a part of it. So that, and we picked these different groups, and then those groups got to put somebody forward onto the committee so that it really was a broad spectrum of who was in our community down there.
Great, thank you.
I think we talked about that.
Well, I know they did it for the PowerPoint anyway. Probably shouldn't talk too much on that. That is an option, correct? I mean, probably not on the negotiation side of things, but we
Yeah, I was
could-
gonna say this is really more targeted towards the,
Great.
scheduling and process oriented things, not actually you guys are gonna be the ones doing the housing element or you're gonna
Yeah.
do the rezoning process.
Okay, great.
Yeah, no, you're just
Thanks for clear.
helping to schedule and make sure we're moving forward.
Great, thank you, Danny.
I think doing background research.
I think it's the
good
plan.
information.
I mean, anyway, I don't know. We probably shouldn't have it too much of a discussion. We're just forming the ad hoc. I didn't
But
mean
we need
shut you
to
down there.
clarify what we're gonna do. I mean, I get that, like, you're gonna have a meeting and you need to have council members at the meeting, so.
And I
And
can't
that,
have more
and
than
that
2 of
meeting,
you.
yeah, and that meeting may not be appropriate for community members.
Right.
But there's gonna be other opportunities perhaps to involve community, to have town
Yeah, that will
halls.
come later. This is
Um,
strictly just for internal negotiation purposes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Elise is out of the town. You are going to be out of town. Kat is available. I could be available. So me and Kat will be on this ad hoc.
Okay.
At least for now, I suppose. Because that's the
Yeah.
other thing with an
If-
ad hoc, right?
Let's,
You
yeah,
can
to
change 'em.
kind of, I think I'm going to get to the end of your point, which is we can focus on this timeline with HCD, and it doesn't have to be so expansive. It's all a housing element. Let's just get through this process. and
Yeah,
then-
we're just trying to get through the immediate future.
All right, awesome.
Great.
So we have 2 ad hocs.
And I'd just like to, just in terms of ad hocs, so when the ad hoc has privileged information and they can't share it with others, we all come into a meeting in an open session and we can share then. And then if somebody needs off an ad hoc or whatever at that point, because they don't have the time or whatever, we can reform with different members once we've come together and shared everything that there is to share. Now there's no privilege, there's no Brown Act,
Makes
issue
sense.
at that point. So
Makes sense. Yep.
I just keep that in
Yeah.
mind going forward so that we don't
Yeah.
get overburdened for whatever reason. in schedule.
Yeah, your ad hocs are not carved in stone, and nor do they have to last forever.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 9, 2025-2026 budgetary study sessions. The discussion. Action
Everybody's most
item.
favorite part.
All the favorite thing. All right, what do we got?
So the budget that was in your packet is the only change to it since the last time we met was to add in the recruitment, $15,000, which I split evenly between water, sewer, and government because that's where your city manager's hours come from in the budget. So 5K to each of those. That's the change that was made since the last time we did this.
Were you able to give us details on the rent of
Yes.
property
I have those right here. So
information?
park facilities budgeted income is 19,800 of that is rent for facility use and the doghouse.
Could you give
And-
us a page number, please?
Oh,
That
it's
applies?
20, page 20.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Okay,
page
and then
20.
if you don't mind repeating that as we get caught up. Thank you.
No worries. So your park facilities, budgeted income on your page 20 there. That is your $19,800 for rent and use of the doghouse. So rent is for the crash hall that is not skate parties.
Mhm.
Because we do rent for non-skate things. So that's going to be, or like the picnic benches or the stage, that kind of stuff. That's going to be in that number. And then the concession stand that's currently being operated by the doghouse.
Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty much a solid, predictable income
It's pretty solid and predictable.
we've
most of the
projected
time, yeah.
in the budget. Sorry, I'm just going to
Yeah.
kind of hijack this whole piece because this
It's
is
all good.
marked. So we budgeted anticipating 25,
Mm-hmm.
and then we got 10.
Mm-hmm. Part of that was because we weren't able to rent the commercial kitchen facility in Crash Hall
Because of the permitting and the
events, yeah.
upgrades that needed to happen.
That's where
Okay.
the rest of that would have come from is
Okay.
being able to rent on that scale. But
Okay.
now that we have that addressed, we'll be able to rent on that scale.
Okay.
So
And then, sorry, one more question. One more, it's kind of a bigger question, and then I'll settle down. Where in here is the bike park?
The bike park is not its own line item. It's part of the general
Is it in?
umbrella.
Is that the information that we have? I mean, that I.
It's not.
Okay.
Mostly because we're not spending city funds on it.
We're not.
Yeah, we're spending donated funds on it.
Awesome.
So we don't typically.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
It's not our city funds. We're not budgeting for donations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So park facilities, does that include the fields and I guess there's a special line item for Little League,
Yeah, Little League's its own thing.
but
and
that would
the-
include anytime anybody rents the park.
Yes.
For a music festival, for a picnic, for a wedding, for whatever,
Yes.
right? And does that also include the arena?
I believe so. I
Okay,
think like Gymkhana Arena, that area, I believe that's all lumped into park facilities.
okay. So all right.
You don't have those kinds of detailed reporting, like this much from the doghouse, this much from the
I
facilities,
mean, I
this much.
can, but it's not a report I can just pull. I'd have to go pull several
Mhm.
reports and then make a spreadsheet and then put that in the spreadsheet and give you a
Okay.
total.
As a side note,
Yeah.
if there's any kind of budgetary software program that might be more user friendly, that
I
we
would
can
love
that
to
you would
explore those
recommend.
options.
Mhm.
That's a whole other conversation for a
So,
whole
like,
other time.
I'm
I
really
have
struggling
software.
to kind of keep up with some of the.
I have software recommendations, but we're really not there yet.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Unfortunately.
Moving on.
Would without having to get into what we collected, but could we at least get under, since we're talking on park facilities, identify each item that is collecting a rent and what that rent's for?
How do you mean? I believe I just answered that question when I said to Michelle, I have to pull many reports and then sort them into spreadsheets to get you that information.
No, I meant if, like, so it was called, hey, I want to rent the horse arena. How
Uh-huh.
much is that? And you would say X amount of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
So like having that information.
Oh,
so-
yeah, that's on the
Yeah.
website and I can have Emily send you guys an email. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head.
But not just for that one, but for all of the ones that go into the park facilities.
Yeah.
I know you were looking at you're looking for some low hanging fruit as far as, the Airbnbs, making sure that they pay, what they're
Mhm.
supposed to pay to the city. And then that's something that I know there's so much work that staff has to do in maintaining these and the
Mhm.
amount of money and materials, equipment in maintaining these.
Mhm.
And so really making sure that we're at the upper threshold of what we are allowed to
Yeah,
collect.
we are for those. As far as building permits and fees, we're not there. But
Mhm.
for Parks and Rec, that's the only fees we've touched this whole time. And
do you
so
mean?
those are quite competitive compared to our other fees for other things.
Mhm.
Our park facility fees and rents are very competitive with surrounding area,
Mhm.
what they charge for the same fees.
It's been about 2 years since we looked at that and kind of revamped all those.
Right.
Kind of brought them into the, kind of up to date.
Yeah. So those are
But-
the most recently adjusted.
What about utilities on these rentals? Now I know like short-term rentals for the park for maybe a weekend, utilities isn't really an issue, but like with the doghouse where it's a constant thing, are
That's
there,
factored into the rent cost.
it's factored in, so there aren't meters that
No, we
paid
don't have
separately or
sub meters
anything.
for any of that.
Okay.
That would be an endeavor.
So, on page 21 for donations, we had $65,000 under Parks and Rec fees. We had $65,000 projected to 2,000, and then
That's where the bike park money has come into.
Okay, so-
we're
so we're-
counting the donations.
but not the costs.
We're counting the costs, but they're like spread into the whole
Oh.
spread for park facilities, which encompasses many GL codes, depending on what kind of service was rendered. So
It's understandable.
every expense in government gets coded out to like up to 20 different places, and depending on what it's for. And so that makes it a lot harder to get like granular when you're trying to track things, unless you have a specific project you're tracking. It gets a lot harder. So we tend to track those things as a separate thing from the budget if we're trying to track a specific project.
But when
So-
it's sorry,
Please go ahead.
But when I mean, I guess the confusing thing for me is when we're trying to look at a budget and
Mhm.
budget for things, and then we see this income,
Mhm.
but we don't see the costs, and we know that this income is going to be earmarked basically
Mhm.
for
Yeah, and it's already all gone out.
right, and so we're anticipating 25 in
We're
donations.
in the next fiscal year. That was the accountant's best guess.
Okay.
It should be higher than that, but because of what needs to happen, what's left with the bike park. But there's certain like rules and formulas when we're trying to do income estimating,
Okay.
and so it's kind of hard to We can't just like, well, we need the 400,000. It's gonna be 400,000. You know, like we
Right.
can't pick a number and say that's what it's gonna be.
And I'm trying to,
Yeah.
sorry for being so
No, it's
obtuse and
it's totally cool.
bonehead, but I'm like,
You want to understand.
I
I want
want
you
it.
to understand.
Yeah, right. So sorry
No, it's
for,
totally cool.
for others that aren't following. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted clarity because that's my thought that was what was happening, but yeah. Okay.
Danny, for legal, do we have a breakdown or is there just like a base rate? Like, do we know like what project it went to or if it was like
For what?
for just legal in general? So I'm looking at it.
Oh,
Where is
the
that?
legal fees?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So those get spread too, depending on what it was for. Like some of our legal fees are cost recovery for planning and building and engineering projects that go through permitting process.
Mm-hmm.
So those will be, those get put under our cost recovery fees. That's our current service charges there for attorney fees. That's stuff that's been cost recovery under legal fees. Our general legal fees, when we're talking about in the general fund, that's all things that did not apply to one of the other funds, basically.
But I think to piggyback on your question, John, is it possible, or when the law firm bills us out, do they, let's say that they were billing for 40 hours, do they identify if it was for subject A, like whether it was
Oh
for
yeah, it's
benefits
all
of B or
broken out and
C?
it all gets coded just like every other expense.
Okay. And I'm assuming specific dates
Oh yeah,
on
their
all of
billing
the
is by the
attachments.
minute and
Okay.
has all the details. And then
Okay.
Vicky and I sit down and we sit there and go, okay, this project goes to this GL code. This goes to this GL code.
Mhm.
So we go through every invoice
Okay.
line by line and code them individually to what they're actually going to.
Would it be too much trouble for you to provide, I guess essentially the billing copy from the attorney so that we could, rather than seeing it, having it pushed into the GL codes, but to see how they've billed for each of these topics so we can better understand?
I mean, right now, yes, that would be a burden.
Okay.
I have way too much on my plate currently. Like we're lucky we have a budget in front of us.
Do you know when that might be?
We can
Just don't even talk about it right
let's
now?
talk about that after you get your city manager recruited.
Okay.
So the general fund is projected to face a significant deficit of $126,000.
That is, that's why we're having a study session to talk about this and, identify areas where we can probably have to trim things. There are also one thing that has not been accounted for in this budget is we have not yet received for fiscal year 24-25 about $150,000 from Caltrans, which will affect that number at the end of this because basically we're acting like we've pulled it from this year because we never got the reimbursement last year. And that's what's part of what's throwing us into our deficit.
That's good to know.
So
Good to know.
I found our thing that says we're due that money, and I called Caltrans and I said, "Hey, where's our money?" And they are cutting us a check, and we will have that.
Okay, you could have led with that. I'm just kidding.
When should we have had that?
Usually they disperse those sooner in the year, like May, before the end of the fiscal year, usually. But for some reason, ours got missed.
Great.
That's okay. We'll get it though.
And what funds does that money go to?
That one's primarily going to go into our streets and all of that stuff, public works.
So that's general fund.
Some of it's general fund because it's reimbursing for stuff we pulled out of the general fund to fund the projects that get covered.
Do we have any plan to mitigate the reduction in other state green?
Right now, it's a focus on revenue recovery. Like I said, addressing our building and planning fees, addressing other cost recovery fees, TOTs, those kinds of things. Those are going to be the immediate solutions. Moving forward, we're going to have to really work on our economic development game. That's really the only place that we can go that's not pulling from fed or state.
I noticed a couple of things. Well, okay, I'm on page 24.
Okay.
For the park facilities department and for the recreation department just noticing some bumps and some dips and bumps in the salaries
Yes.
and wages, and I'm guessing that we lost a couple and then we gained a
Yeah, we've
couple.
had some changes in personnel, but
Mhm.
also we've had some changes in public works personnel. So previously, when we were having folks that were doing parks maintenance from our public works department, it was their time was getting coded to public works. We've since changed that so that
Okay.
they're getting coded to the appropriate place where their labor is actually going.
Okay.
So that was one of the big changes. So we pulled a bunch of park labor out of public works and put it into Department 445, which is recreation. And then we did get a reduced amount of the Cal Recycle grant. So that took some of that was staff time was getting funded to that. And now that that's reduced, that's gotten moved back to fund for Department 425.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're keeping up with all of this because this is a lot. Um,
Yes. Yes.
a
it
lot of
is.
shifting of things that I mean, thank you for the information now, but
Absolutely.
again, if we had a program to generate some reports that kind of were self-explanatory, and it's not you, it's not on you. It's just like, oh, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a little bit more than it could be if we were
Mhm,
doing
mhm,
it a little differently.
mhm.
But
I was
we're
just
where we're at.
gonna ask you to sort of restate what you just said because it was a little confusing. So you said that some of the public works time was not getting coded. Some of their facility maintenance time was not getting coded to facilities, it was getting coded to public works. So you changed that.
Yes, we
But now in
shifted it.
recreation department, you said something about recreation.
So we shifted that's recreation is part of that, like the mowing the fields and things. That's recreation instead of park facilities for some reason. I don't know that's a historical choice, not mine. But we've had to move some of the labor from public works into that department, and then Austin's time is basically what we've switched out of the Cal Recycle grant and back into Department 425.
In the park.
425,
Yeah.
not 445.
Not 445.
So he's a park facilities.
Yes, because he's
Oh,
in charge of skate and some other things.
but not rec. Okay.
Yeah,
That doesn't make sense.
I
Sorry.
know a lot of these things don't, and
Well, yeah, because like
it's very counterintuitive in a lot of points.
it is.
Government accounting.
Yeah, rec went up 45,000 and parks went up 25,000. But whatever. Got it.
To follow up on that, you're saying that Public Works hours had been assigned to Public Works, but have now been moved to Park Facilities because that's where that time was. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Looking at parks, Public Works, it also seems to be an increase there as well. So it would be even larger had you not moved those. Okay.
Yes.
Where we are looking at an increase, I think last year it was budgeted for 62,000, and now you would have taken out more of the Public Works folks. We have an actual projected actual very close to that. But for the coming year, you have 84,000. So even though some folks have been taken, or the hours have been taken out of Public Works, we still have a $20,000 increase.
That accounts for the annual salary increases that we do for cost of living. And then also our operators, when they earn more certifications, that earns more pay commensurate with that. Otherwise, we risk losing them to more well-budgeted institutions.
On page 25, I was just curious about the capital outlay for and our expenditures for the Commerce Creek District Fund 36. Capital outlay was projected to be 77 and it was 111, and now we're guessing we won't have any.
Mostly because I have that written down in a note here. Oh, shoot, I left that one on my desk. Mostly because the projects that were happening on Powers Creek District have concluded and they're not we haven't like designed any new projects to go in there currently that we would be budgeting for.
And we have like a big blank spot that may be an opportunity for other state grants up in our.
We do have some opportunities there, but this is a picture of what we have going
Got
on
it, got it,
now.
got it. Got
If
it.
we get into that, then we
Okay.
can do a budget amendment and add it in there.
Okay.
That's what budget amendments are for. This is like
Thank-
your snapshot in time, and
Gotcha.
then later you can amend to be like, well, the circumstances have changed, this situation has changed. We're
Right.
gonna do this now.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, as you stated, this budget draft is as it was essentially on June 20th when it was first published for our last meeting,
The only difference being that 15K.
right? So our projected actuals for 24-25,
Those
How
are based on May. May was the last date we pulled that information. And then we did a projection calculation where basically you extrapolate it by the 12-month period and then add the missing months to your actual.
and we're not expecting any large invoices or any atypical sorts of things happening. So you're pretty solid on these numbers.
Those have all been processed. All of our invoices have been processed. So this should be like pretty accurate within, 10 grand, I would say.
Okay. Well, yeah, I have all kinds of questions and wonderings. I'm not gonna articulate all of them right now, but I'm happy to hear you say that our projected actuals are pretty solid at this point.
Yeah, I don't see really huge changes within that. Like I said, probably a $10,000 tolerance.
I'm
what we're
happy
looking
to hear you say that we have some money coming.
We do have some
Mhm.
money coming in. We do have revenue recovery for a couple of other things that will be due in this fiscal year that are accounted for in here. But yeah, like new grants that we apply for, new anything that we go for funding wise, that's not in here yet, but those are still options. They're not closed to us.
Go ahead.
I was reading something from Jenny Short, who gave us some really good information, some good questions. And this came up, and I wouldn't have even paid attention to it, but Law Enforcement Department
Which
260.
page?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 23.
Thank you. Yep.
Page
see.
23 for the Law Enforcement Department 260. And is it just split out contract payments? And so it's listed as employee benefits as well as salaries and wages
it's a holdover from
and
how we
contracted
did it.
professional like that's I hadn't noticed that before.
Yeah.
Is
And then
that-
that's separate from the thing that's in the supplemental law enforcement grant fund, which is where our primary expenditures come from
Oh,
for
yeah.
that big contract with HDSO.
And is that in here?
Yes, that's going to be under. Let me find the right page for you. It's going to be page 10, Supplemental Law Enforcement Services
Oh.
Fund. That's going to be in your special funds if you go deeper into the packet. But as far as like that, the numbers are right there. It's 180 something that we're projected to receive. We have not yet gotten that number from the state. So I don't know
Still.
exactly what we're going to get for our
Okay.
supplemental law enforcement grant.
Is it pretty consistent? I mean, it was 170 or
It was like
no.
180, I believe, was the projection because it typically has increased by about a 2%,
Okay.
2 to 3% every year.
Okay. Thank you for
Mhm.
that supplemental law enforcement services. And as we figured out last time, you told us that will not apply to any kind of animal control contract.
Unfortunately not.
So this previously I believe my understanding was that Department 260 was about benefits for retired retired police officers that used to work for the city.
Yes, we also still pay into the pension fund for that. That's why it's broken out separately from the supplemental law enforcement services. Blah blah blah.
Oh,
So the contracted
Acronym.
services is with the sheriffs, and then the employee benefits, the line above,
Mhm.
is
that's what that
for
is?
retiree.
Yeah, that's the pension we pay into.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Which page?
So we pay for the law
23.
enforcement
Like I'm cheating
pensions?
off their
So the
homework here.
When
Yeah.
employee
we
benefits,
used
yeah.
to have
Oh,
one.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pension
I'm
from
like,
retired.
When we used to have one.
okay, got it.
That would
Right.
probably be the only indicator left in our books that says that ever exists.
I was just wondering if we were paying for the sheriff's retirement as well.
No.
as we
Oh
connected it.
no. Oh no.
Just wanted
Wow.
clarification.
So I did want to see just in general terms, oh, where was it? I think when I was looking at Parks and Rec, uh, it seemed to be about a budget of almost $500,000. But on the flip side, how much do we typically see in cost recovery revenue?
We see
support that?
most of that and then some.
And how does that appear in the
Let me look for the line
revenue?
item here. So our Parks and Recreation fees is gonna be on page 21. That's gonna be the bulk of where things come from. We also do get a bunch of like child recycle grants and
Mhm.
random park related things that come down through our state funding. So that's all accounted for in your state, county, and other grant revenues. Some of those do get coded into Parks and Recreation, just not as fees. And then we have.
So we have, like, if we were looking at what we had for planned expenditures, about $500,000.
Mhm.
On page 21, you're saying we'd have about, well,
We've got like
currently
more,
about
it's,
210. Let's
if I
just,
recall correctly, the total expenditures for Parks and Rec was more closer to $250,000 instead of half. It was like 250, if I recall
Mhm.
correctly, 275 maybe.
it's not where I had to find it.
But yeah, we've
Mhm.
got most of that coming in through the fees that we get, the vending machines, the summer rec program. And then the other
Mhm.
thing to keep in mind about summer rec program is that those incomes straddle 2 fiscal years.
And that's why we had such a
So we have
disparity between.
yeah, because
Yeah.
some folks will pay right before June 30th, and so that gets
Mhm.
put in the previous fiscal year, and some people don't pay until like July, August, and then that goes in that fiscal year.
But that should
So-
sort of balance out from year to year because that always happens.
Yeah, it just depends on how much
Yeah.
of the proportion of the total happened
Mhm.
in one versus the other.
Yeah, there is
That's
quite a
different every year.
well, there's quite a disparity there. The budget for 49 and then the actual 16 because of that split, but that
Yeah.
seems really like
Yeah, it's weird that it happens that way. But we've also had a little bit of decreased enrollment in the summer rec program, but most of this decrease is just the fact that,
Mhm.
like for instance, this year we got a lot of our stuff in before June 30th, so it wouldn't go on this fiscal year that we're talking about now.
right.
So we've had an increase in people paying earlier for
Okay.
summer rec program than they previously
Mhm.
did.
Okay.
I think I see where my maybe conflating two different funds together. If we look at page 21, Parks and Rec fees, and this
Mhm.
is a revenue,
Yeah.
we're looking at about, let's just say $200,000.
Right.
Whatever last year, this year.
Mhm.
When we go to page 24, I see Recreation Department, $300,000, and this is expenditure. And then I see Park Facility for $200,000.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So and
Again, it's
and just
because the
let me-
incomes don't directly code to the expenditures the
Mhm.
same way. We pull from the funds differently than we expend from the fund, or the way we get them into the funds is different than we expend them from the funds. So it doesn't always 100% line up that way. That's just, in my experience, that's just kind of how it has been. I don't have enough institutional background knowledge to like be able to explain exactly where that comes from, but it's not an abnormal thing that I've witnessed. So
Mhm.
Oh, you're getting there.
I'm getting there. I'm trying, guys.
You're getting there.
Absorbing all the
Just keep
knowledge.
swimming.
Yes, just keep swimming.
Um,
On page 28, I had a question about the expenditures for the Solid Waste Recycling Fund 32. Total expenditures going, the projection is for it to go down.
Yes, because we project that the Count
Mhm.
Recycle grant was going to go down, and then that's why we pulled Austin's hours out of there, and we pulled
Oh,
things
yeah,
out
yeah.
of there.
Okay, okay, okay. That was
Yeah.
that adjustment.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, you're,
No
Okay.
worries. Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces.
what was that?
I said there's a lot of moving pieces. It's
Yeah.
if it's
Mhm.
not all immediately clicking, you guys are doing better than a lot of people. I'm gonna just put that out there. Most people, when I start getting into these details, their eyes glaze over and they're like not here anymore. So you have good questions and you're with it.
Well, it's still
Just so you
early.
know.
I mean, it's only 8:30.
give us a couple more hours. We're getting a little love online. I can't see from who, but that's
Yeah.
nice.
It looks like clapping.
I think
hands.
it's Julie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Julie.
So those revenues, those solid waste recycling fund revenues, they pay for our green waste and our recycling bins around.
Yeah,
parks and stuff?
the green waste days that we do, the 4 or so on a calendar year, that's what that's fund. This funds that, and a couple of other things.
Would you?
When you say you pulled Austin's hours out of there,
He was doing a lot of the coordinating, like creating the flyers and planning the green waste days and things like that. So a lot of his hours were getting put into that category, but now that there's less funding in that category, we're not putting those hours in that category.
okay, thank you.
So our staff benefits about $500,000, 489,000.
That sounds right.
Okay. And that's about half of our total wages, right? So we have like a really good benefits program.
We have an okay benefits
Okay.
program. We are not competitive with other municipalities in the benefits that we offer. The only thing really that, because our wages are consistently much lower than compared to with other municipalities, the only real thing we do offer is benefits.
Great.
Can you help me with page 30 on the CDBG program income holding fund 42? So I see the number of 20,000 in the low loan payment revenue,
Mhm.
and then the transfers to other funds is 21,000, and then projected actual and then budget is nothing. What was the 20,000 about? What was?
Those are loans that we previously gave through the CDBG program, and
Okay,
that people are supposed to make payments on them, and if you don't get their payment,
gotcha. Oh, okay.
you know,
Okay.
some people have passed away in the course of the program, and
Oh,
so there's like a
Mhm.
stack this big of folders of I have to go through of old loans to see where we're at with them, and there's currently like one person still making their payment.
is there any, I mean, just to explore that a little bit, is there anything, any potential in there where we need to like,
Not really. Not as much as
no?
there is with the other areas of opportunity I've identified. This
Okay.
is going to be not a high priority to try and address right this second.
Okay.
Just due to the staff time it would take.
Okay.
We're talking about fund 44 or
42.
42.
Okay. May I ask oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
This should be on page 31 on the water fund, 60.
Yes.
Somebody wants to
Oh.
look at that page.
So of course I see where we have our employee salary, wages, and employee benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have two other lines, contracted professional services and other contracted services. And they're a little bit significant, just so that we can learn what's included in those two different categories. What services are
Anytime we have a
provided.
major repair that requires a contractor,
Okay.
we have to contract out. Our public works guys are not contractors, but they oversee the work. that's being done to make sure that it meets city code and cross connection policies and all of the things that go with keeping our water safe.
Is that, so, there's two categories, contracted professional services, other contracted services.
The other contracted services, probably, if I remember correctly, like the SCADA system and things like that, like where we're paying a monthly fee for having a service that tells us when our alarms go off and when the tanks are low and that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Sorry to jump back to Parks and Rec. I just had a couple questions come up. So for 25, 26, it looks like the salary and wages went up by $25,000. Is that correct?
Yeah.
82,000. Why was that again? If you explained it already, I
I
apologize.
totally did at
I-
the very beginning.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think that was the shift in the
That's right.
labor costs from one to the other.
Thank you very much.
On page 31 for the water fund, back there, I just am noticing a difference between interest earned for the budget and then the projected actual and our now budget for this year. Are you seeing what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Interest
so
earned?
the interest earned is when it's the money that sits in our account earning interest, and we haven't had as much money sitting in the account to earn interest because we've spent it on repairs.
Yeah, but we thought we were going to.
We thought we were going to. It was well intentioned, but then the thing with water and sewer is that there are going to be those unplanned expenses,
Sure.
and they happen, and you try to build in a cushion as much as you can.
Right.
But you never know what you're gonna get till you get there.
Yeah, aging infrastructure, I got it.
Yeah, a lot of our pipes are hitting their end of lifespan.
Okay. And then looks like we have another bump up in salaries and wages on page 33 for the sewer fund. Yeah, so a little bump up. Did we have a change in staffing, or was that standard COLAs or?
We're having a change in staffing. One of our former workers is now going to qualify as an operator. They have their license.
Oh, congratulations. Okay.
Yes, we have more people licensed to do the things.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So that's for, I'm sorry, is that sewer or water?
That is for sewer, because they are a sewer person. Sorry, I'm
Certified,
like,
whatever.
they're
Yeah.
doing the things. They're
Great.
not hanging out in the sewer.
Okay.
Just because I'm not used to city budgeting, like when we are constantly in a deficit, how can we continue to like give raises? I mean, like I'm not trying to be. I'm just like
No,
curious.
that's a
Like,
very
hey,
valid
like,
question.
not doing too good here. Like, why are we?
Well, we do, unless we find no way to pay for these raises, then we will have to put a moratorium on them. But
Mhm.
they're in there because they are considered a thing that we do as part of normal business operations. And so we plan for them. And then if we, find that we're not finding more grant money to pull from, or we're not increasing revenues in areas we think we're going to be increasing revenues, just that we don't know how much exactly to project for that, then, we will have to consider a moratorium on raises. But for now, it doesn't look like we're in that dire of a situation that we need to consider that option.
Cool. Yay.
Any further comments, or we feel like opening up to the public comment?
I'm feeling okay, but I did want to clarify, when we do open it up to public comment, is it okay for Danny to respond to questions that might come up that we maybe haven't looked at or found?
That is the prerogative of the council.
I will allow you to answer questions that you
Okay.
feel comfortable
Perfect.
answering.
Thank you.
Alright.
Great.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Sewer, how many operating sewer employees do we have? Or sewer operators?
It's tricky because I have 4 full-time employees in Public Works and I believe 3 of them are certified for different things. Because water distribution is separate from sewer treatment and sewer handling, I think it is, or something like that. Anyway, those are all different certifications, and Glenn, if Glenn was here, he would tell you exactly who has what certifications. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I know we have 4 full-time employees total in public works.
Well, when you said we had a new sewer operator, I know.
Somebody got promoted.
So there, okay,
Somebody that was already existing is now promoted.
okay, because we had 2 operators before, so now we have 3 operators.
We should have 3 now if we had 2 before, yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. Any more questions from council? All right, let's go ahead and open up to the public. Does the public wish to speak? Yes, go ahead. Julie, I'll get you after public.
The public in the room,
Public.
Right.
I was just wondering on the budget, when I was looking at the previous year, and this is the amendments that came through, and Danny had talked about the amendments. There could be amendments, and there were many pages of the amendment for last year's budget for the 2024. So Danny, are we looking at having any expected planning cost recovery? Because that, between that and the engineering, that was $91,000 in additional revenue than what was in the budget before. And the same, and the Caltrans also, there was an increase in the amendments for that last year as well. So it came out to, what was it, $272,000, although one was made from a transfer in from another fund, but just 91,000 just from those fee recovery. So do we look at, is there anything like that that we might be anticipating happening in this budget as well?
It just depends
It
on what
depends.
comes down from the state.
Okay.
I don't,
okay.
yeah, I don't
Well,
have
this
a
was
full
just
complete
from-
picture from them yet.
Yeah, it said increase in greater than expected planning recovery money that we got back for engineering and
Yeah. And I
planning, so-
haven't had yet a chance to meet with our accountant to process the budget amendments for 24-25 fiscal year.
Okay.
So
Oh,
we
possible
haven't
there
done
may
any of
be-
that yet.
Okay.
Oh.
So I'm just saying there was
Mhm.
some pretty substantial increases. In
Well, last year we budgeted about 1,009,000 in our general fund, and we spent 1,372,000.
Okay. And
Was
was,
some of that additional 300 and roughly 70,000 was cost recovery,
okay.
but some of it was not.
Okay. And I know that was a question last time. What was the actual budget deficit for last year? And how was that taken care of? Did we pay for that out of like a special reserve fund?
I don't know yet.
You don't know.
Our audit's not complete yet. So
Okay. We don't know.
I was like,
Okay.
I don't have that information just yet.
Okay, yeah.
For
That's
24-25.
good.
Yeah, 24, 25. Okay. And my other question was, as I was looking through budget information, have we done the audit for last year? Because the audit that was presented in October was actually for the 2023
Mhm.
Yeah.
year, and we were late, and there was a letter from the state.
Yes, we're going
with
through
some
the
concern.
audit process right now.
Okay, all right, perfect.
And that audit process is for what year exactly?
24-25.
Okay.
24-25. Because
Not
it
23, 24.
It can't be because.
Sorry, so sorry. 23-24's audit is in progress. We just closed 24-25. That audit will be happening. It's supposed to start in October.
So I thought we were like almost a whole year behind.
We are almost a whole year behind. Ideally, we get the 24-25 audit started in October.
Okay.
That's the goal.
That was 3 minutes.
Okay.
Sorry. Any further questions?
I brought handouts, but I don't know how you do this, so do I just hand them to the first person and they hand them around?
That
We can
works
do
great.
that, yeah.
Works just
Some of you
We
guys
charge by the hour
received
now.
that in
Short.
email, but I didn't know if you would have gotten it by the time we got here.
Oh, these are all one page each.
I
got it.
don't have.
Yeah, there's 2 different things there. So good morning or good evening, members of the council. I am Jenny Short. I was the one that emailed you late this afternoon. And I just wanted to tell you, thank you for the opportunity to address you guys with my comments and questions about the budget that you're considering adopting. First, I'd like to acknowledge how difficult it must have been for Danny, being a relatively new city employee, to step into the interim city manager position, and how admirable it is that she has been able to produce a budget for the council to even consider. Good job. To provide some context, I am a third generation Blue Laker who left to pursue an education and begin a career as a professional civil engineer. And I returned 18 years ago to raise my own children here in the town that we all love. Recreational opportunities for the youth of our community is a passion of mine. I served on the Parks and Rec Commission when my children were young, and I served on the Blue Lake Fieldbrook Little League Board of Directors for over a decade, where I am currently hold the position of treasurer.
We have comment, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yeah.
Were comments restricted to the?
I was just
the
waiting.
government?
I'm giving you a moment to go ahead and
Oh,
talk about the
okay.
finances. So go ahead,
Trying to
continue.
keep us
Sorry
in.
about that.
Well, no, this is related to your financials.
Okay, great.
So Little League is a completely volunteer-run organization, and I sympathize with the city as the cost for providing the recreational opportunities in our community keep rising. That being said, for more than a decade, I have performed the duties of Chief Financial Officer for the Garberville Sanitary District, which includes preparing and managing the performance of a fund-based budget just like yours. And I know how critical it is to prepare and adopt a budget that balances each year. Taking funds out of reserves to cover normal operating expenses costs is a road that leads to bankruptcy and the temptation to transfer monies from restricted funds to cover expenses in deficit funds or incorrectly allocate expenses, especially staff time. Today, I briefly reviewed the draft budget as presented and found that there are several funds that show a significant deficit, which is concerning and I believe should be modified prior to adoption. Water operations at a $111,000 deficit for next year, plus a $30,000 additional payout for capital expenditures after experiencing an $82,000 projected deficit this year, doesn't seem acceptable. This fund is the most concerning since the rates for the water charges are supposed to be set to cover all of the costs associated with providing the service. The general fund at a $127,000 deficit for next year, Parks and Recreation appears to be a contributor of a deficit of almost $300,000. Even if you were to take all of the grant money that she's talking about in the other fund, it still would leave $100,000 in a Parks and Rec deficit. The CDBG non-program income fund 38 shows a $52,000 deficit for this year, which appears to be caused by a capital outlay of $71,000 that wasn't budgeted for and doesn't seem to be specifically identified in your budget. The TDA Purchase Transportation Fund has a $14,000 deficit for this year, which is one of the funds that perform the least consistent with the budget, yet the proposed budget for next year doesn't appear to make any corrections. The sewer operating fund balance projected for this year end this week. I'm almost done. Just
Okay.
give me one more second.
Second.
Is $139,000 to the negative, even after significantly higher sewer sales this year than was budgeted. It was encouraging to see that the excess in law enforcement services and that the sewer fund appears to be performing even better than budgeted, which could eventually result in a positive amount.
Maybe we can, if you want to talk.
If I-
I know your 3 minutes is up. I'm sorry.
Very good information.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
I just encourage you not to adopt a budget that has a deficit. You need to balance your budget. You can't continue to operate the way that you have.
Thank you. Julie, any further comment from public? Yes, go ahead.
I concur with the last speaker. It's important to always have a balanced budget of some type. Otherwise, we don't know where the money's coming from eventually. And that leads toward a bankrupt city. I personally feel that we really need an in-depth study regarding parks and recs. And the information that we just provided to you indicates that the testimony of people in town are that we're having less children here, and that's probably true. The other thing that is true is that I went down to a park and rec thing with Erin McClure the other day to do a presentation with her donkey. She was expecting 50 kids, and there were maybe 25 of them there at the most, I would guess. And it seemed like it was about the people supervising. I don't know if they were donating moms and things or and paid employees. I think we have a problem down there, and I think a really hard audit of that. I hate to say it would be a money pit, and it would be your decision if we want to fund that over the top of other things. But we would look toward hopefully having these kind of programs break even, and then whatever discretionary money you have left over, if you have a good budget year, You can throw money, but I really think that should be gone into depth on. The other thing is, and I could be wrong, but there's, I believe, there's metering devices that you don't have to put a meter in. In other words, if you wanted to know how much power was being used by the doghouse or when you put your skateboard park in without actually having separate meters, I think those can be attached. Strongly recommend that any facility that's based upon and is getting a certain amount of quote unquote within their money, that we know exactly how much that's costing. Close enough, very educated, not just a guess, but something based upon some facts. And that's how we can determine what correct rate should be for our lease and things. The other thing is, when we have such things as we have a very large thing, I think it's the something of courage or something comes here, we need to have rates that are proportional to the amount of use and the amount of income these things get. And I don't know if there's a way to get a percentage of the gate or something like that, but when you have a small little thing and it rents has maybe 10 cars parked there, versus having the whole city blanketed with parking taken up, I think there should be ways to have different rates for the facility based upon volume. Any opportunity to speak?
Thank you. Any further public comment? Alex? Okay. Julie, Christy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate all our prior speakers with their thoughts and input. The dialogue was very similar last night at the Parks and Rec meeting, discussing potential revenue for the city. And I do concur with Danny. I'm so sorry to hear my donkey. I listen to a lot of the other municipalities, as I mentioned before. They'll actually break out with a lot of special study sessions when it comes down to budget time. You guys weren't really given a good foundation to start that with, but it is something I know that we'll achieve together. We're just having to kind of get through what we have now. The audit is something that actually go back and look at the letters the auditor sent, just saying that would disclose a lot of that delinquency. But I agree with the prior speakers in Parks and Rec last night. I spent many years, even my entrepreneuring here on my farm. I've totally taken something that wasn't happening here, started with something totally new, and I've excelled to being the biggest junior livestock producer in our surrounding counties. And even your arena there, many years of volunteering, and now up at McKinleyville. So we can barter a lot of our need in town with volunteers, even with block parties, cleaning up around blocks, and setting up that room better, that it is a meeting room, not so much a commodity room. Because all these clubs, like the Saddle Club, the Bike Club, Bocce Club, everybody has a place to meet. We can set up stuff in there that it's always able to record and be auditable. And when you really have a core place that people can conduct business and get out everything that they need, we really then start to develop this business platform. Parks and Rec should have really went back prior to your guys' budgeting, and I think this is a suggestion for the next years, that they actually do a fee schedule review on all their stuff and everything they have going on, so that it's a little more like updated in reflection of the budget. We're going to have to figure out what we owe, disperse it in ways that we can facilitate getting funds and different revenues. I understand that, but we definitely are, I think, as a community, more than willing to support what's going on. So you guys understand, the county is in immense of debt of neglect, immense of debt. We are like a small little fry on the side. I wish everybody would step up at our supervisors with their budget review, because we need your support. They are what we would fall back on if we have trouble, and they are nothing. They have nothing to support us. We have to support ourselves. And I think getting some micro grids in town, any way we can do that, is always probably a really good self-sufficient idea. Well, yep. Adios, my friends.
Thank you.
All right, last call for public comment. All right, let's bring it back to council. What do we want to do?
Well, I think we have a lot of areas that still need looked at.
Okay.
And I don't know when or how we're gonna do that. I don't I mean, at our last meeting, Danny, we talked about a spreadsheet you had that had a lot of information on it.
Yeah, I was looking at that and I don't really feel like that would be a great resource for you guys since you're not accountants.
Can we get it?
I was told by the accountant that that is not for distribution
Okay.
Why?
Well, then,
because it's in accountant speak. And it's literally just formulas and numbers. There's no this is blah blah blah. There's no editorializing or summarizing or any of that goes into it. It's
Can I still get it?
you can ask the accountant.
Okay.
He's the one that made the document. It's up to him whether or not it gets distributed.
can you share with us, Scott's part in building this budget?
This is Scott's work.
Okay.
I tell Scott what the future for us potentially looks like. He makes it numbers.
Okay. And so this, this newly identified income from Caltrans of around 150,000. So that is money that we should have had last year. Is that
It's going to get accrued back to the fiscal year 24-25.
okay? So
because
it's
it
not going to
was-
have any bearing on our bottom line here.
It could once he processes the payments. It just depends on how he does it. I'm not an accountant. I know a lot about finance. I know a lot about how some accounting things work. I am not a government accountant.
Okay.
Yeah, so like my area of expertise is very limited when it comes to that stuff. If you want to get into the nitty gritty of like how a government accounting functions on a deep level, I need to call Scott in for you guys.
Okay. Well, normally Scott comes to our budget meetings.
Yes, he's out of town currently.
Okay.
When do we? Sorry, go ahead.
I think we all have questions, so we can just.
I'll
pop
go
over
right
the
to
line. Oh, well, thanks. Now I'm gonna forget what I was gonna say. When will Scott have that information put through so we can get a better picture?
I'm supposed to talk to him next week when he's back in
Okay,
town
so
to
relatively
see
soon.
where we're at as far as like, because we have a lot of cash receipts that went up to June 30th that are not in here yet.
Okay.
Things like that that have not been accounted for
Mhm.
because we weren't at yet the fiscal year end.
Yeah.
And
So I have a follow-up question with that before we get too far along. I know in a previous open session, we had talked about that. I mean, thank you, yes, for getting what you did to us. I know that was hard. And we still have more hard work ahead of us. So I think that this council, as we said in a previous closed session, will be looking at this budget again and probably soon, even once we passed it.
yeah,
We want to kind of monitor it closely and make adjustments as we go.
we're gonna have to.
And I think I want to tag along or emphasize, underscore the point made by the previous speaker about not going in with a deficit on our budget. We may have no other choice in this point in time if that's what we have. But I would say our objective would be to very quickly make changes so that we are not. And exactly for what we're saying about the climate for us as a town, for the county, for the state, there is likely not much of a safety net. So I think trying to position ourselves as best we can to weather the storm. It can be small things as instead of having staff labor, maybe doing some of the work with Parks and Rec, if it's appropriate to build our volunteer base. I mean, Blue Lake will come out and support it. Whether we're looking at reviewing the fee schedules, and I think, I agree that using a horse arena for kids to come out and, pet donkeys is very different than having a huge event that impacts the whole town and the preparation. And I don't know if there's a sliding scale on that says, anticipated number of users, below 50 X amount, over, kind of bracketed, that we could anticipate that it takes more to host more. But
That's already built into the way that the
Right.
schedule of fees is set up for Parks.
Right.
and Rec.
But to get back to the point here, so what we're doing tonight, we're trying to inch closer, but we're gonna not try to live with a deficit and just say
Right.
magic will
Th-
help
That's
us.
like I said, this isn't a permanent thing. This is a snapshot of where we are at right now in time. And it can change. It's not, this isn't set in stone. This isn't the rules by which we will live until next June 30th.
Mhm.
This is a guideline. It says, we're gonna attempt to spend our money in this way as responsibly as we can. We're also acknowledging that there are going to be other avenues where we may need to make changes.
Thank you. That was fine.
Yeah.
Michelle?
I'm feeling like I would like to spend some time with the accountant after some time has been spent to fill in some of these gaps because there's a lot of gaps in here, questions, things that we don't know yet, amendments that need to be reported, receipts, etc., payments. So this was informative. I appreciate the work. We still have a ways to go before we're going to be able to do much. And I think it would be really interesting too to speak with the accountant about options for future reporting that looks a little more detail in some of these other things like other expenses. That phrase is killing me here with, $11,000 in other expenses.
Yeah, we typically try not to categorize anything as other. The only time it does fit into other is if it literally fits no other category and
Sure.
it's not a big enough thing to make its own
Right. I
category.
mean, just, again, just to get some ideas about what that might be. And I don't need your time on that right now, but just so we can just kind of look at some of those things. And then if there is any wiggle room with any staff person who may be interested in seeking grant funding for anything that's going on. I mean, I know that you guys are not just like hanging out and playing cards, but
Definitely not doing that.
but anyway, I mean, just like Captain Obvious here, just trying to okay, how can we help? How can we help with this? So anyway, thank you.
Yes, Emily is going after grants every time she sees something come up that says, here's a thing that's related to Parks and Rec, and she's like, should I go for it? What do you need from me? Go for it. You need me for something, we'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely out there going after everything that we can go after at the current moment. And I will reiterate, SHN has been a huge partner in that. They are as soon as they hear there's a grant, they're like, hey, you
Okay.
could use that for this. How
Good to
about
know.
how about we go after that?
Good to know.
Do we pay them for their time though on it, I'm assuming?
We pay them for their time working on the grant, but they come across this stuff in their normal course of doing business. It doesn't cost them any extra or charge us any extra for them to say, hey, this is a thing that's out there, because it's pretty common knowledge for people in their field.
And are they doing the grant applications?
It depends on the application. For a lot of our roads and things that require engineering, they're doing those applications because for the obvious reasons. If it's, just, hey, write us a nice little story about what you want to do with the money, then they kick that one to me and then I, write them a nice little story.
Great.
So I'm trying to find our bottom line for last year. And it seems like it's sort of in the wrong place, but it's on page 24, I think. At the bottom of the page, we have our total expenditures and our excess deficit at the bottom.
Yes.
So it looks like currently we're showing a $23,000 surplus for last year.
That's that's from the projections, and that's based on the revenues from places that we haven't received them yet. And so it's projected. That's all I can say is that's projected.
So you're
based
already
on-
projecting in the revenues that we haven't received to that number?
That's how it's done.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more of
So
a
that
Scott question.
Caltrans number is in there, is factored in?
That one is not in that number, because that one, I don't even think Scott knew about that one. It wasn't, it was not recorded as a thing that we had previously gone after. So, yeah, that's gonna
Is
be
it not
more of
a
Scott
normal
question.
revenue for us?
The Caltrans, no, that one's not. That one was like a one-off thing.
I see.
Yeah, so we had not gotten it before. This
Okay.
particular one.
Okay. well, it seems like we're kind of, it looks like we need to reduce some expenditures going forward. And it looks like we need to do that before we adopt a budget.
That's why the recommended action was for you guys to direct me for what you would like to see.
Right, yeah, so we just need to see. So I think a meeting with Scott
All right, well, I will schedule a meeting with Scott and get back to you
with
guys
more
with-
detailed, filling in some of the missing pieces. Um, I can't think of,
Jenny provided us with some interesting calculations of wages and benefits. And it seems to me that we really need to better understand what we have here. Because it looks here like we have a total wages of $858,795 and benefits of $489,154. And I'm not sure if that's customary. Those, and I'm honestly, I don't, I'm not even sure what the question should be here. But our wages and benefits is a huge number. And I understand that spread across general fund, water and sewer funds. And it would be really helpful if we could get a better handle on what we're doing and how we're doing it, and if we can, and where, if anywhere, we have wiggle room.
the compensation plan and what that looks like and how that's worked out.
I mean, I don't
As far as
really
benefits.
have any wiggle room there. We're already operating at the barest of minimums that our CalPERS contract will allow. We're already having to go into renegotiations for our health insurance plan this year because our current provider is not going to offer health insurance anymore after December 2025. So that's going to change. I don't know what that looks like yet. The costs of these benefits go up based on what PERS tells me, what the insurance companies tell me, what our risk managers tell me for workers' comp. I have zero control over those.
Right.
I have zero control over those. And if we offer less than what we offer now, we won't have staff. Everybody will find another
I don't
job
think
somewhere else.
I think just exploring some of the percentage of the benefits to the wages. And I'm just obtuse when it comes to what the standard is. Because I know that
Yeah, like
benefits
I said,
are
we're
expensive.
already at the barest of minimum we can offer. If you're gonna make cuts, unless you're gonna cut programs and things that require staff, then that's the only way you're gonna cut that number.
Well, it seems like we might have to identify any programs that are non-essential. If we don't have a, if we can't factor in the income we're expecting, that we're not sure where it's going to be attributed, we got $126,000 that we have to find. And if it's not coming in, then it can't go out. So, and again, I don't have the detail to say, hey, this is essential, this is not. I don't know to a level of detail that I would need to even ask the questions or identify anything, but it looks like we need to find some non-essential things and have a look at them.
So it sounds like our next step is that you need a meeting with Scott because you have questions that I cannot answer for you. And that's going to be our next step. And then where we go from there, that will be up to you guys.
So you mentioned dates that we need a budget by X date.
We passed a resolution giving us 60 days to come up with a new budget. So we're covered now.
Okay.
I'm covered till when?
Till
September 17th. Anyway. I didn't know.
August.
60 days from
So
when?
yeah, 60 days from the 24th.
Thank you very much.
Or 27th.
Can we?
I just was gonna volunteer to come up with something if it's an option.
You can probably talk
Will
to
you hit
staff
me up on
after.
email and we'll talk?
I'd be glad to, yeah.
Thank
Just
you.
especially in your
your water fund. I'd like to help you figure out your water rates if possible. 'cause
Thank you.
it's-
I welcome all help.
Reach out to staff after the meeting. Thank you.
I welcome all help.
So is the direction clear that we're
We're meeting
having
with Scott,
Scott
and as soon as I get dates from him for a meeting that also don't conflict with existing dates, you guys are not going to be here. I will
Right.
send you a
Right.
list of potential dates we can have that meeting.
Yeah, and yeah,
I
when
know
you
it's
look at
vacation season right now. Everybody's all over the place.
a
So.
professional analysis of the budget
Mhm.
or the
Yeah,
finances.
I gave you what I can give you based on my knowledge
Oh
and
yeah, no, it's great.
experience.
It's a lot of work.
But yeah, there's an accountant for a reason.
Mhm.
But I'm not him.
He's
And-
going to tell us to get skinny.
And just so you're aware, like before this, like the budget analysis looked really good. Like there'd be no reduction in anything, but like with these new numbers, it's looking a little worse. So
Well, we added $15,000 in expenditures to something that was already expenditures heavy. So
anyway,
yeah.
sorry.
Well, anyway, so I see that our next meeting that we know about is the fourth Tuesday, which is the 22nd.
Yes.
So
If I can't get you guys with Scott before then, that will be the next goal date to have this conversation. But I will attempt to get you guys all in the same room with Scott before then.
Okay, and are there any other time sensitive issues that we're gonna want to look at before the 22nd? Do we know if we have to have a meeting for some other reason?
Not currently to my knowledge. That will depend on the outcome of Monday's meeting with HCD, likely.
Okay,
If anything time sensitive was going to come up, that would probably be it.
okay,
So that's why I also was like, how about we ad hoc for that meeting? And that way we can roll with the punches a little easier if we need to be a little more time sensitive.
Okay.
All righty. We get a motion to adjourn, I believe.
Those are always in
Yeah.
order.
Right, I do
Oh,
have a
did you have more
question.
questions? Apologies.
Only because with the HCD letter, obviously it could be time sensitive. When we have formed an ad hoc, are we authorized to provide staff direction as an ad hoc? Or do we have to take it back to council? Or can council now choose to imbue us with that power to make a decision if we need to at that time to keep things moving along?
I mean, I can't see where you would have to make a decision where we wouldn't be
Right.
able to meet. Mostly this is just to make sure that at least two members are at least one member, if not two, are involved in the conversation on Monday.
Great. Thank you.
And the outcome of that will likely just be perfunctory and saying, hey, do the thing we already told you to do. Maybe do it faster. That's probably the outcome.
Great.
By looking at a crystal ball.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
May I have just a brief comment? 1 minute.
It's not on the
No.
agenda, Alex. I'm sorry. If you want to email it to us or whatever, you can talk to one of us after this.
No.
I just would like to, on the record, correct my mistaken thing in the agenda item.
Great.
It's like,
Thank you.
I correct that on the record. I was wrong. This was not in the section I gave you. You see this.
Great.
I also want to thank this young lady for steering me in the right direction where I found this.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Can
Thanks,
we get a
Alan.
motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
First, second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.